Hello folks, and welcome to my guide on Rosaria.
Pray, not for the gods nor the betterment of others, but for yourself.
This is a contribution to the guide contest of Hoyo Lab. The link for this post will be in the video description. I will be talking about all of Rosaria's abilities and best combos. I will also discuss weapons and the many artifacts she can utilize and what's best for each build. Rosaria is a well-rounded character and is best played as a main or secondary DPS, but can also be used as a support to provide crits and cryo status. At first glance, she is very similar to Kaya in terms of cryo application and damage. The main difference is how easy or hard it is to get their constellations. At Constellation 0, Kaya is a little better in freeze comps, but Rosaria is stronger in melt comps. But their difference in strength is pretty minor. The most important part is whether you want a waifu or husbando shredding through the enemies. For me, I love her English voice. Elizabeth Maxwell has a very similar voice to my favorite voice actress, so I'm perfectly fine with using her over Kaya. Anyways, let's get started with her normal and charge attacks. She has a 5-hit combo which actually consists of 7 hits. The third and fourth attack does 2 hits each. Her multi-hitting attack makes Crescent Pike a viable choice for her, though it won't be as busted as that weapon on Xiangling. Rosaria's best attack string is actually one normal attack into charge attack and then jump cancelling. However, her charge attack animation feels a little weird, so it might be hard to consistently pull off the jump cancel at the best time. I actually prefer her longer combo strings, which will be better if you have trouble getting the proper jump timing on her N1 charge cancel. The strings I prefer to use are N4 dash cancel and N5 dash cancel. They both have very similar DPS output and are easier to execute. Just make sure you don't dash too early and miss out on the last 2 hits of the N5 dash combo. Any of these 3 combos are fine, just choose the one that you can do the most consistently, or you can mix up the charge attack with the longer attack strings to balance the stamina usage. Her elemental skill, Ravaging Confessions, repositions Rosaria behind the enemy and does 2 hits of cryo damage. Hitting an enemy with this will give you 3 energy particles. If you have her Constellation 4, getting a crit will restore an additional 5 energy. Being on a 6-second cooldown, this skill does pretty good damage and helps get her burst back pretty quick. Her Ascension 2 passive also increases her crit rate if she hits the back of an enemy with her skill. This synergizes pretty well with Constellation 4 and the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set. She can teleport behind most enemies, including the rounder Fatuis. She can also go through lava churros if you teleport between the legs. She cannot go through Muta churros with big shields or any of the Ruin Construct enemies. However, you can just position yourself behind the Ruin Guard, then E to still hit the back and get that crit bonus. Her teleport does not have any iframes, but it can move you out of harm's way entirely. It is also a good way to stick on enemies without using stamina. Her elemental burst, Rites of Termination, does 2 quick cryo hits on use, and then does 4 more cryo pulses with a decent AoE. Having her Constellation 2 increases the pulses from 4 hits to 6 hits. Her Ascension 4 passive also buffs other party members' crit rate, so it's actually a pretty good idea to swap to your other team members and cast their abilities after using Rosaria's burst. The normal combo is to E to get the bonus 12% crit, Q, then swap to your other party members while the team crit buff is active. Most team comps that uses Rosaria are very swap heavy, but that can keep the gameplay more entertaining. For her talents, all 3 abilities are good on her. She uses all 3 quite often. If she is your main or secondary DPS, then level the abilities evenly. I will prioritize her normal attacks a little above her skill and burst. The one exception is if Rosaria is your burst support to apply cryo damage for your team. If that's the case, then focus on her burst first, then E. Don't worry about her normal attacks in that case. Both her Ascension passives benefit all her playstyles. The bonus crit from her Ascension 2 is always nice to have, and with her Ascension 4 passive, only the crit rate that shows on her character stat page is used to buff the team. Bonuses from 4-piece Blizzard Strayer and the Cryo Elemental Resonance does not boost the crit rate that she spreads to your team. The crit bonus also snapshots Rosaria's stats when you use her burst. This means even when the 12% crit buff from her Ascension 2 passive expires after 5 seconds, your team will still keep the same crit buff for the entire 10 seconds of her Ascension 4. Being a 4-star unit, we can hope to skip more constellations of her over time. She will be added to the permanent banner in Update 1.5 and beyond, and we should see her as raid up in the future. Her Constellation 1 is great for her DPS build, and pushes more reason to use the longer attack strings instead of the charge attack spam. In pretty much all of her builds, she will be critting all the time, so this buff will have very high uptime. Her Constellation 2 is her best constellation. This adds 2 more ticks of her burst, which means more damage, more cryo application, and more elemental reactions. Having Constellation 2 also bumps her above Kaya unless he is also at C2. Her Constellation 4 helps fund her 60 energy elemental burst. If your elemental skill hits correctly, there is a very high chance that one of the 2 hits will be a crit, and you will get the 5 energy for free. You can also use her E twice before her ult comes back off cooldown, so this constellation helps lax her energy recharge requirement. It's a pretty nice quality of life, but it's not necessary. Lastly, her Constellation 6 is extremely nice for a Crescent Pike physical build, or if she's acting as a support for a physical DPS like Razor. Stacking this with Superconduct will let you shred through even the Ruin Guard enemies, which normally has a 70% physical resistance. Now on to her weapons. A lot of weapons work on her, and their ranking depends on Rosaria's build and team comp. Therefore, I will change the format on the weapon list again to fit her better. I'll be showing the top weapons for her Superconduct team, Melt team, Freeze team, and when she's on a team as a burst support. I will also arrange the better weapons on the left side, and all the weapons will be considered at Refinement 1. Rosaria actually has pretty good base HP. At level 90, she has almost 13,000. Here is a list of other character stats when they are at max level. Those you don't see on this list like Ningguang and Fischl have even less HP. Rosaria actually scores pretty high, being the second highest HP out of all the 4-star units, right below the tanky Beidou. This means the Staff of Homa is actually pretty good on her. Add in the crit damage substat and the bonus attack passive, and this ends up being one of the best weapons for her in most situations. The Skyward Spine and Jade Spear are also pretty good. They have the highest base attack among the 5-star polearms, but the main drawback are their high field time usage to maximize their passives. Rosaria is best when swapping often with her team and using everyone else's abilities. Her Superconduct physical build will want her to have more time on the field, but the Crescent Pike ends up being better than the other 5-star weapons and getting even stronger at Refinement 5. The Dragon Spine Spear is good, but is still overshadowed by the Crescent Pike even with the higher passive proc damage from enemies being affected by cryo. Dragon's Bane will be the best 4-star weapon for her melt comp, since most of the big hits will be causing a reverse melt, taking full advantage of the weapon substat and passive. Both the Black Cliff Pole and Deathmatch are useful in all her builds, but don't outshine the specialized weapons. Finally, the Favonius Lance is a great choice for a support Rosaria. She should crit multiple times when she gets swapped into E and Q, so you are almost guaranteed to get the bonus energy particles in every rotation. I know this weapon section dished out a lot of info in a short amount of time. A lot of the weapons are good on her, and those listed at higher only performs a little better than its neighbors. You don't have to use the best weapon I listed. These are more of a general guidance to inform you of the possibilities. The weapon refinement also matters, so use the best one you have collected through all the wishes and farming. Her artifacts also greatly differ depending on her team. Stat priority is pretty similar, with the minor changes from her physical and support builds. Also, with her freeze comp, she will get 55% crit rate from the artifacts and resonance bonus, plus another 12% from her Ascension 2 passive. For that build, you don't want your unbuffed crit rate to be above 33%, otherwise it will start going to waste. The obvious artifact set for the freeze comp is the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. There isn't really a better set out there, but if you end up with a weapon and helmet with lots of crit rate, you can sub it for 2-piece Strayer and 2-piece Noblesse or Gladiator. For her physical Superconduct team, you definitely want to use 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Bloodstain. You will also want to use a physical damage goblet, unlike the other 3 builds. No substitutes here. Those artifacts are pretty much the best choice for a Crescent Pike build. With her melt team, 4-piece Blizzard Strayer will still be one of the better choices, but mixing in 2-piece Noblesse can also be good. You can also use a 2-piece Gladiator or Wanderer, but those will be slightly weaker. Noblesse is better since her ult does a huge amount of damage, especially when it triggers Melt. Lastly, her set for a support build will be either 4-piece Noblesse or 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Blizzard Strayer. You can also swap out the offensive 2-piece bonus for more energy recharge, but the Favonius Lance is good enough to cover for that. It still kinda sucks that we do not have energy recharge artifacts available in 5 stars. Since this video is going long, I will briefly go over her team comps. I plan to make a more in-depth video to dive into more detail with her teams later. For now, I'll just list some examples of party members in each team. First, the physical team. You will definitely want to activate Superconduct, and you already have half the solution with Rosaria's cryo damage. Just bring one electro unit like Fischl or Beidou, and add in a healer. The last slot can be another cryo for more energy, a Nemo with Venera set to reduce resistance, or Zhongli to help further reduce physical resistance. For her freeze team, you will want 2 cryo units and at least 1 hydro unit. Chongyun and Xingqiu are very good choices for this. The last unit can be a healer or a second hydro unit depending on how good you are at avoiding damage and keeping enemies frozen. Finally, the Melt team. Having 2 cryo and 2 power units is ideal since they can feed each other more energy. I usually go with Xiangling and Bennett for the 2 pyro, and you can use Kaya or Chongyun for the 2 cryo. These are some quick suggestions while I spend more time making the detailed video for the team comps. That's pretty much it for my Rosaria guide for now. As always, thanks for watching and have fun out there, traveler.